Ever wondered what happens when a big company in India goes on the brink of collapse?
Well, get ready for it.
Get ready to find out, because in this deep dive, we're taking you behind the scenes of India's corporate rescue missions.
That's right.
Think high-stakes deals,
Big money.
legal battles, and the fate of entire businesses hanging in the balance.
Entire businesses.
And don't worry, we've got our legal compass handy to guide us through all that jargon.
Absolutely.
We're talking about the Insolvency and Bankruptcy Code of 2016.
Yes.
IBC, for those in the know.
That's right. It's a mouthful, isn't it?
It is a mouthful.
What's fascinating about this is that India, for a long time, was stuck with a system that made reviving failing companies about as easy as pushing a builder uphill.
Okay, I get it.
Yeah.
It was tough. So imagine this. A company is drowning in debt.
Oh, boy.
Creditors are knocking down the door, and everyone's scrambling for a lifeboat.
Scrambling.
Before the IBC, it was often left to, well, the same folks who might have steered the ship into troubled waters in the first place to try and fix things.
And that's where the IBC comes in?
They're like, we're back. We're going to fix it this time.
Well, it's like saying, hold on, our priority isn't just keeping this company afloat on life support.
Right.
We need to figure out the best way to maximize its value, whether that means finding a new captain to steer the ship or sometimes facing the hard reality of liquidation.
So no more clinging to the past. But before we go further, let's talk about who actually gets a say in these corporate rescue missions. Because it's not as simple as just being owed money. We've got two main players, financial creditors and operational creditors.
Right. You have your financial creditors, think banks and financial institutions who provide those big loans.
Right.
Then you've got operational creditors, often smaller businesses, who supply the goods and services on credit that keep a company running day to day.
So if I'm a supplier who hasn't been paid for months, I'm an operational creditor.
That's you.
And the bank that gave the company a multi-million-dollar loan
That's right.
is a financial creditor.
Exactly. And here's where things get really interesting. The IBC treats these two groups differently.
Oh, how so?
And that's something that sparks some serious debate,
Okay.
even going all the way up to the Supreme Court.
Hold on a minute.
Yeah.
That doesn't sound fair. It's like saying the big bank gets preferential treatment over the smaller suppliers.
I see where you're coming from.
Who often end up left high and dry when a company goes under.
It's a valid concern.
What would you say to someone who feels that way?
And it was a key issue in the Supreme Court case, Swiss Ribbons versus Union of India, that we have for you in this deep dive.
Okay.
The court had to grapple with whether the IBC was inherently biased against operational creditors.
Okay. The Swiss Ribbons case?
Yes.
So how did the court justify this different treatment of creditors?
Yeah, their argument was that those big loans, financial contracts, are fundamentally different from contracts for, say, office supplies. The scale, the risk involved, the terms of repayment. Sure. It's all on a completely different level. And financial creditors play a crucial role right from the start in assessing a company's financial health.
So they're saying banks are more equipped to handle these situations because of their existing financial involvement?
In a way, yes.
Okay.
They're more familiar with the financial intricacies and are often more willing to restructure loans to try and save a company. But, and this is crucial, the Supreme Court also recognized that operational creditors need protection.
Okay.
And highlighted the safeguards built into the IBC to prevent them from being completely sidelined.
Okay, safeguards. Those are good. Tell me more about these safeguards, because I'm still a bit skeptical.
One key safeguard is that the IBC gives operational creditors a voice in the rescue process.
Okay.
They have a vote on the proposed rescue plan, and they're guaranteed at least what they would have received if the company went through liquidation.
Oh, really?
It's a safety net of sorts.
So it's not about favoring one group over the other. It's about recognizing they have different roles and ensuring everyone gets a fair chance.
Precisely. The IBC aims for a balanced approach, even if it sometimes seems complex from the outside.
Speaking of complex, let's talk about the SR Steel case, which sounds like a real-life corporate drama.
Oh, yeah.
We've got two major players vying for a piece of the pie, ArcelorMittal and Numittal. What's the backstory here?
The SR Steel saga is a great example of how the IBC's eligibility criteria, specifically Section 29A, comes into play. Think of Section 29A as a gatekeeper, making sure that the very people responsible for a company's downfall don't get to come back and bite it for pennies on the dollar.
Sounds like someone tried to pull a fast one.
Well, you could say that.
Give us the play-by-play.
Well, SR Steel a huge name in Indian steel production, was in dire straits facing a mountain of debt.
Oh, boy.
ArcelorMittal, a global steel giant, and Numital, a newly formed consortium, both threw their hats in the ring to rescue it.
We're here to save the day.
That's right. But there was a catch.
I knew there had to be a catch.
Numital's initial ownership structure raised some serious red flags.
Like what?
You see, one of the partners in this consortium was a member of the Ruia family, the same family that had been at the helm when SR Steel went under.
You're kidding. That's like letting the fox guard the henhouse.
You said it. And the Supreme Court wasn't buying it either.
What'd they say?
They saw this as a blatant attempt to sidestep the rules.
So how did they react?
Numital, realizing they'd been caught out,
Busted.
tried to scramble and restructure at the last minute to distance themselves from the Ruias.
Oh, really?
But the court saw right through it.
So they used their legal X-ray vision to expose this scheme?
Exactly.
Yeah.
They applied the principle of lifting the corporate veil, basically meaning they looked beyond the legal facade of the company to see who was really pulling the strings. And they called them out.
This is getting good. What happened next?
The court basically said, nice try, Numital, but we're not falling for it.
Wow.
And to really make a statement, they declared both Numital's and ArcelorMittal's initial bids ineligible, sending shockwaves through the corporate world.
Oh, my goodness.
The message was clear. The IBC means business when it comes to preventing those responsible for a company's failure from turning around and profiting from its rescue.
That is a serious power move. So in the end, did either of them actually get to rescue SR Steel?
Well, in a surprising turn of events, the court gave them a second chance.
Really?
They basically said, okay, if you're serious about rescuing this company, prove it.
Put your money where your mouth is.
Pay off the debts owed by your related companies, and you have 2 weeks.
Wow, talk about a high-stakes poker game with the court holding all the cards.
Exactly. This wasn't just about SR Steel anymore.
Right.
The case set a major precedent shaping how the IBC is interpreted.
Wow.
Especially when it comes to those all-important eligibility criteria.
Okay.
And it showed everyone that the IBC is more than just words on paper. It's a tool for change, pushing for transparency and accountability in the corporate world.
Okay, so we've established that the IBC is a game changer.
It is.
But I keep hearing this myth that it's completely biased towards financial creditors.
Right.
Is there any truth to that?
Not really.
Okay.
Remember, the IBC is focused on finding the best solution for everyone involved.
Okay.
The Supreme Court, back in that Swiss Ribbons case, directly addressed this myth and emphasized that the law has built-in safeguards for operational creditors.
Okay. I'm starting to see how those safeguards work.
Yeah.
But what about situations where the parties involved want to avoid going to court altogether?
Right.
Can issues like this even be resolved outside of the courtroom once the IBC process is started?
It is possible to step back from the brink, but it's not an easy path.
Oh.
Section 12A of the IBC allows for a company to withdraw from the process. But there's a catch.
I bet there is.
It requires agreement from a massive night day. 90% of the creditors.
Whoa, 90%. That's a tough crowd to please.
It is. Why such a high bar?
Think of it as a deterrent to those sneaky, under-the-table deals that could benefit a select few at the expense of others.
Right.
Requiring 90% agreement encourages collective decision-making and protects the interests of all creditors, ensuring complete transparency.
I like it. No sneaky side deals, everything out in the open.
That's right.
But tell me, is there anything the IBC doesn't cover?
Yeah.
Are there any gray areas where things could get complicated?
Well, the IBC is intended to be this objective process, almost mechanical in its execution.
But we have to remember that we're dealing with real people, real emotions, and complex businesses, not just numbers on a spreadsheet.
You're saying that in the real world, things aren't always black and white.
Sometimes there's a little gray in there.
There's more to it than just following the letter of the law.
You've got it. And that's what makes this so fascinating.
Okay.
For example, let's say a related party isn't directly involved in a company's downfall, but could still benefit from its rescue.
Okay.
How does the IBC address situations like that?
Okay, so a silent partner lurking in the background who could profit.
Exactly. The SR Seal case showed us just how far some people are willing to go to bend the rules.
Oh, wow.
So it's crucial to remember that understanding all the nuances of the IBC is a deep dive in itself.
So even with this robust system in place, there's still room for interpretation.
Oh, absolutely.
Those tricky gray areas.
Always.
It's a real-life legal chess match.
You could say that.
Yeah.
And that's what makes this deep dive just the beginning.
Right.
We're giving you the foundation, the key pieces of the puzzle.
Yeah.
But it's up to you to keep exploring, to ask those tough questions and see how this all plays out in the real world.
And that's exactly what we'll do after a quick break.
Sounds good.
Stay tuned. Welcome back. So we were just talking about how the IBC isn't just some abstract legal framework.
It's not, no.
It's got real-world implications, especially for the everyday people whose livelihoods depend on these companies.
Absolutely. We can't forget about the human side of this.
Right.
Think about the employees, the suppliers, entire communities.
Mm-hmm.
They're all watching and waiting to see what happens when a company is struggling to survive.
Yeah, it's more than just a financial equation. It's about people's lives, their families, their futures.
It is.
What would you want to know if you were in their shoes?
Exactly. Remember those waterfall charts we talked about?
Yeah.
The ones illustrating how assets are divvied up if a company goes into liquidation?
Right. Those charts showed the pecking order of who gets paid first if things go south.
Well, those charts are a stark reminder that there are real people at the end of those arrows.
Yeah.
Families depending on those paychecks.
Right.
Local businesses relying on those contracts.
And let's be honest, even when the IBC works as intended and a company gets a second chance, there can still be tough choices and unintended consequences.
Definitely.
Right.
Restructuring often means streamlining operations,
Yeah.
which mean job losses. Imagine the mix of relief and uncertainty for an employee whose company was saved, but who might be laid off.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
It's got to be a hard pill to swallow.
It's a roller coaster of emotions for sure.
Yeah.
The IPC can be a lifeline for companies, but for employees, it can feel like navigating uncharted waters.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
It's a good reminder that the IBC isn't just about legalities and financial equations.
Right.
It's about people's lives.
It is.
And while it's designed to bring order to chaos, there's always an element of human complexity that can't be fully captured in a legal framework.
Precisely. And that's what makes this whole area so fascinating.
Right.
And so crucial to understand.
Yeah.
The IBC is a powerful tool, but like any tool, its impact ultimately depends on how it's used and interpreted in the real world.
It's like we've peeled back the layers of a complex onion.
It is.
But there are always more layers to uncover, more to understand.
Exactly. And that's the beauty of a deep dive like this.
Right.
It's not about giving you all the answers.
Yeah.
It's about sparking your curiosity, raising new questions, and inspiring you to keep digging deeper on your own.
I love that. So to our listener, we say this. Your deep dive into India's corporate rescue mission doesn't end when this episode is over.
Keep going.
You've got the foundation, the key insights. Now go out there and explore those gray areas, uncover the human stories behind the headlines.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
The most fascinating discoveries often lie just beyond the surface.
You know, it's easy to get caught up in all those legal battles, the big money deals.
It's exciting.
But at the end of the day, we can't forget about the human impact of all of this.
Absolutely.
Right.
For every SR Steel case with its high-profile battles and dramatic twists, there are countless smaller companies
Oh, I'm sure.
facing similar struggles.
Yeah.
And it's the everyday people, the employees, the suppliers, who often feel the impact most acutely.
It makes you think, what would it be like to be an employee of a company
Right.
navigating this whole IBC process?
Yeah.
That feeling of uncertainty, not knowing if you'll have a job tomorrow, if your company will even exist.
Absolutely. It's a roller coaster of emotions.
Yeah.
Imagine the relief when a rescue plan is approved,
Right.
but then the anxiety of potential layoffs, restructuring.
Having to reapply for your own job.
Exactly.
Goodness.
The IBC can be a lifeline for these companies,
Yeah.
but for employees, it can feel like navigating uncharted waters.
It's a good reminder that the IBC isn't just about legalities and financial equations.
It's not.
It's about people's lives.
It is.
And while it's designed to bring order to chaos, there's always that element of human complexity
Right ways.
that can't be fully captured in a legal framework.
Precisely. And that's what makes this whole area so fascinating
Right.
and so crucial to understand.
Yeah.
The IBC is a powerful tool, but like any tool, its impact ultimately depends on how it's used and interpreted in the real world.
So to our listeners out there,
That's right.
we leave you with this thought.
Yes.
Your deep dive into the IBC, into the world of corporate rescue missions in India, doesn't have to end here.
It doesn't.
We've given you a glimpse behind the curtain, a foundation to build on.
That's right.
Now go out there and keep exploring. Look for those human stories behind the headlines. Ask the tough questions.
Absolutely.
The deeper you dive, the more you'll discover.
You never know what you'll find.
And that's it for this deep dive into India's corporate rescue mission.
This was a good one.
Until next time, happy exploring.